Welcome, fellow seekers, to the Seekers of the Eternal podcast, episode 45, with our special guest, Daniel Shankin, founder of TAM Integration, which is a really incredible resource for having a psychedelic experience that meets you where you're at. The TAM Integration also offers memberships that can provide access to their enormous collection of psychedelic wisdom, including past conferences, courses, resources, and invitation to their live circles and talks. And Daniel even offers free integration circles as well, so you can totally dive right in now and start connecting with the group. Tim also hosts workshops and talks around psychedelics and meditations that you can join live and in person. And also for a personalized approach, Tam's Psychedelic Integration Coaching Program focuses on deep, personal, spiritual journeys. You will be given the tools, practices, support, and attention that you need to heal and grow. And something that I also really dig, Tam also offers a year-long coaching training program, offering certification training that creates a powerful container for people with emerging spiritual visions. And by the end of the year, program participants will have the skills to serve others as catalysts for powerful change. Daniel is very active on Instagram, where he posts inspiring short takes that I really love and resonate with. Follow him at TAM Integration on Instagram. And I really enjoyed this conversation with Daniel. I hope his words and his presence plant many lovely seeds that will continue to sprout into more lightness, awareness, wisdom, and courage for your journeys, both inner and outer. And as always, this podcast is supported by our growing community of seekers on Patreon. For a small monthly donation, you will become a member of our Seekers Club with exclusive podcast episodes, community chat rooms, behind-the-scenes art process and material videos, live Zoom gatherings, and audio-video recordings of guided meditations and visualizations that I'm creating. You'll also receive 15% off all prints, apparel, and accessories in my online store. And I currently have a pre-order special on a brand new gold foil screen print of the Tibetan Buddhist deity Mahakala. I also have pre-orders on super comfy long sleeve t-shirts that bring the blessings of this great and fierce protector with you wherever you go. See the links below in the description, and I look forward to connecting more deeply with you all on Patreon after you listen to this episode. Please remember to like and share this podcast to help us grow and to continue our mission of bringing more joy, more play, and more magic into your everyday life. And now, friends, please enjoy this episode with special guest Daniel Shankin.
Fear not, fellow seekers. Peace awaits you in the unknown.
So welcome everyone to the Seekers of the Eternal podcast. I'm your host, Krishna Chandra, also known as the visual artist Palehorse, and I'm joined today by my guest, Daniel Shankin of TAM Integration. And Daniel is a psychedelic integration coach. And just reading some of the things that I heard you say, we offer education, support, training, and coaching for people who are deeply committed to transformation, healing, and growth, who often use psychedelics to support that aim. Daniel, welcome to the show, my friend.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for opening up your space to me.
Yeah, this is the first time we're getting to have a conversation like that. We've been chatting through Instagram DMs a little bit, and we connected through you were doing a fundraiser for Baba's Feed project.
Right.
And found some of my artwork and just asked if you could use it for the cover. And of course I said yes to that. I love that project. And Baba's Feed project, if people are unfamiliar, Neem Karoli Baba, Ram Dass's Guru Maharaji. And that is a group that's continuing that work to feed people in India. Is that correct?
Yeah, in Baba's name. And they seem like really sweet people. I've only chatted with them tangentially, but it's my understanding that it's all volunteer run, except they pay one Indian guy. So it's like all of the Westerners, are it's, totally an active, selfless service. And, of course, they break down how inexpensive it is for people in our position. I'm doing okay. I'm not loaded. You're probably doing okay. You're not loaded. But like compared to what's going on in India, like we're flush, and it takes really just a little bit to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to do that with people who I feel spiritually aligned with is nice, because there's plenty of people doing plenty of good, but it's nice to kind of give back kind of to and through traditions that I feel like have given me so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's that, idea of kind of reciprocity that I think is really, really important.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I love that. And just being able to help others with what we do is such a great thing. I think that's more and more, like, what's the best thing that you can spend your time and your money on, to be able to help other people that are in need. And in this podcast, I always like to open up also with a little relaxation exercise before we dive into our material here. This is just a little way. This is Yogananda's relaxation technique for just relaxing the tension in the body.
Oh, I'd
So
love it.
yeah, so if you're
I
open
was
to that.
actually, well, I'll let you do it and then I'll say
Mhm.
what I was doing.
All
Go ahead.
right. Yeah, so this is a simple practice. It's just going to be a short and long double inhalation. And then we're going to tense all the muscles in the body till they vibrate, and then exhale. So it sounds like, so breathing in and then tensing all the muscles, and then relaxing, releasing, and feeling, and then just opening with a little prayer and invocation to begin our conversation together. So, welcome everyone. Great to have you with us. So, let's begin by just taking in a normal deep inhalation, breathing in and all the way out. And now, double inhale and tense. Inhale, low, medium, high tension, and all the muscles vibrate. And exhale, relax, release, feel. Again, inhale intense, low, medium, high tension, vibrate, and exhale. Relax, release, feel. Last round, inhale intense, low, medium, high, just a bit higher, vibrate, and exhale. Relax, release, feel. Divine Mother, thou art omnipresent. Thou art with us now. Awaken your love in us and teach us to awaken that love in all. Om, peace. Amen.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it helps me just to relax and get into the present moment.
And so in transparency, right? So I have a screen up here as well, and on the screen are your challenge coins. I was looking at your website just before this, and I was looking at the coins, and I was looking at the three qualities of sweetness, calmness, and happiness. And so I took a moment I was like, oh, like that's the energy I want to bring to the podcast. I want to bring sweetness, calmness, and happiness to the podcast. And so I've been kind of meditating on those qualities, and was sort of, focusing on the fiery Om there in the middle as we were doing the practice.
Oh, awesome. I love that. I'll
Yeah.
have to send you a coin. I love, these are the little coins here. I'll have to send you one. I love having these with me. So whenever I'm talking to someone that I feel could use a little magical token to take with them as a reminder.
Well, I would really like it. I mean, we should talk business after or something, but I would love to get in touch with your challenge coin guy, because I could use some with the TAM logo.
Yeah, that would be a
The
great
sacred
one.
serpent and the sacred mountain, holy mountain.
Yeah. Yeah, I love having these. It's a little reminder in your pocket, especially when we'll be talking about psychedelic experiences today, which is very, very close to my heart. It was psychedelic experiences, mushrooms, that cracked me open to being willing to explore spiritual things, and just showing me things that I really previously had no idea were available. So this is a really fun one for me, and I think maybe it would be fun to talk about. I always love hearing the origin stories of superheroes. So hearing about, just your early days of what drew you to psychedelics and what those early days looked like for you. And perhaps if you had any heroes, mentors, guides, healers, teachers back then that you looked to that maybe sparked the kind of work that you're doing today.
Yeah. Um, it's a very particular kind of initiation, isn't it? Under the spiritual path. Um, I had my parents like hippie record collection, right? Like the vinyl, at some point, we dug the vinyl out, and I thought that was really interesting, the Beatles records and the Doors records and the Jimi Hendrix. And I just love the aesthetic, right? Like from kind of a 80s suburban kind of existence that didn't have a lot of um, real energy shakti behind it. I can use Sanskrit on this podcast, huh?
Yeah.
So there wasn't really, yeah, like that kind of like vibrant divinity happening around me. And then just imagine kind of opening up the inside of like Sergeant Pepper's or something. And psychedelics seem to be part and parcel of that. And, the Beatles really, I'll just use them as an example, this really interesting mix of art and music and psychedelics and spirituality, right? Because they had been going to India, they were hanging out with Maharishi, and it was really interesting to me. And so I just started finding my way, the big, I just found the big kids that had it, right? The big kids that had the psychedelics. And, my friends and I, would play the records and, take the acid and see what happened. And it was really expansive, right? It's like that's the old thing that you would hear. Oh, it's a mind expanding drug. It really, really is. So, it was really interesting and really fun and, a little bit harrowing. I sort of saw the power of facing the horror, right? Like a tapas without knowing
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
an implicit tapas in like facing things that are maddeningly terrifying and unable to be understood, right? Cosmic visions of chapter 11 kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and that's how it went. And it was really, the psychedelics were reasonably nice to me throughout my childhood, I suppose. And then sort of end of high school, beginning of college, I found like yoga practice and meditation practice and started to learn about the inexhaustible, the inexhaustible karma that we all carry and what had to be overcome in order to become, a saint or a Buddha or something like that. And, I said to myself, oh, well, I'll do that then. Like that seems like the move.
Mhm.
I'll just work on myself until I become, enlightened.
Mhm.
And and then the psychedelics were like, oh, really? And then they were like, this is all the stuff you have to deal with,
Mhm.
before you can get there. And that was heavy. And I was like, oh, there's like a lot of work to do. And
Mhm.
it really put things in perspective about the kind of, the 100-foot tall mountain, right? And I was just a bird with a silk scarf,
Mhm.
and then you want to, in the hero's journey, sometimes you want to turn your back on it, but then
Mhm.
you realize, well, there's nowhere else to go. Like there was nobody offering to like plug me back into the matrix.
Right.
It was like either you can spiral into madness or you can like try to learn to fly.
Yeah.
And so I've just been kind of like, trying to learn to fly, like Bill Hicks say, trying to take off from the ground,
Mhm.
you know. And so that's kind of how it went. And so I just kind of, threw myself into yoga practice. When things were confusing, one of the big kids, it's probably 27, you know. gave me a copy of Be Here Now and was like, read this, you'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, in the back of Be Here Now was they call it Cookbook for a Sacred Life. It's an integration manual. Like it's a yogified psychedelic integration manual of how to kind of keep your head and your heart together. And so that's, the rest is history, and so I've just been sort of between those banks of kind of um, the psychedelic energy and psychedelic culture, hippie culture, and spiritual practice is kind of just, where I've been bopping around like ever
Mm-hmm.
since.
Mm-hmm. How important is meditation and daily practice to you currently? Is there a routine that you use for keeping yourself centered in the mornings or evenings?
Oh yeah. And as you have witnessed, um, my time isn't necessarily on my own these days.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, when single childless people are like, well, I wake up at this time and then I do 20 minutes of this, I do 45 minutes of that, I do 13 minutes of the other thing, and it's like, I woke up and changed a diaper,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like I had a moment. This was funny, it's like, I get the kid off to school, and I took him to school today and then went to the gym. And I still hadn't had my coffee, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sit in the parking lot, I'm gonna drink coffee, and I'm gonna chill, and I'm gonna meditate. So I had a meditation in the car outside the gym,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I went in to the gym to work out, move my body and stuff, like I usually do. I do this sort of like amalgam of like vinyasa yoga, kettlebell, medicine ball thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So, it's like I can keep myself occupied on a yoga mat for a long time. And, I know how to use the machines at the gym, and I just kind of have figured out kind of what I can do to like maximize what feels like health to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was about to like get out on the floor, and I got a text that, oh, he's got a fever, come and get him.
Mm-hmm.
And right, so I didn't get to do that today. But I did get to meditate in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids know some mantras, right? It's like um sometimes if there's a nightmare, like Sri Krishna Govinda, like he likes that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. They know how chanting works, and they know how to play singing bowls and stuff like that. So I am kind of, yeah, yeah, I'm doing a lot of householder stuff these days.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm aware that this frontal lobe needs rest, right? And that was one of the things that, I do like pithy phrases and sayings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, calmness, sweetness, happiness was like, oh, like I can get a couple of breaths in there. Um, I was thinking recently that I wanted to try to sneak in, and I'm just scared. This is very scattershot. I wish that, it would be nice if I could be like, oh yeah, like, and then the green drink, and then the mantra, and then the thing. Like I do want to squeeze in um, a mantra accumulation. I've done them before; they work really well. But like, there's a mantra that like I kind of want to see if I can find enough time to like sneak in 100,000. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, by like the equinox or something. That would
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, I like the mantras. It's amazing how it opens up and opens up just by the continual repeating of it and wanting to expand with it. Even at first, maybe not even having the feeling at first, but the more and more, it's like I like to think of it in a couple of different ways. Like I'm climbing a ladder or building a bridge, and every repetition of the mantra is like another plank on that bridge or another rung on that ladder. And sometimes in meditation, the mantra to me feels like I'm sitting in this, what Yogananda calls a castle of peace, this
Mm,
castle of peace. And every time I say the mantra, it's making the walls thicker and thicker and thicker
right.
so that no thought can come in.
What it sometimes feels like to me is, like in Harry Potter or some kind of magical thing, the kids will wave their wand and like by magic, like the room they clean the room by
Mhm.
magic. Like that's kind of what it feels like. I'll be chanting the mantra and it just feels like this broken down shack, and it's just like, you know, things are popping up and things are going, the roof is lifting and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, kind of like you said, fortifying and kind of constructing a container for uh, kind of more positive ways of thinking and
Hmm.
creating spaciousness for thoughts that are kinder and sweeter and more generous and more forgiving.
Hmm.
Forgiveness, it's hard to get forgiveness in a mind that's squeezed too tight with kind of resentment, I suppose.
Yeah. This week, as I was anticipating getting to chat with you, and it was bringing up a lot of my, like just memories of early psychedelic experiences, what it was
Mhm.
like for me, and the real takeaways. It was really becoming more and more clear of the benefits that I was really getting, or the reasons why, when I first had my mushroom trips early on, why it was okay, this is for me and I am pursuing this. Some of the things that were kind of coming through into my awareness is really that what was happening, the psychedelics were really allowing me to know the bliss of simply experiencing and enjoying the movies that would arise in my mind or out in the physical world. And it was like I could enjoy them as a silent observer rather than someone who's talking through the movie all the
Yeah.
time. And that was is just like, oh, I had never experienced not talking through the movie before unless I went on some fantastic vacation or I saw something so amazing that it stunned me for a minute. But psychedelics allowed for that period to extend and just to enjoy the movie. So no matter what the karma of my mind was bringing up, like you were talking about, sometimes showing you horrors and very, very difficult, challenging things, but watching it as a movie and enjoying it just as you could enjoy a very challenging movie.
Yeah. That's wonderful. How old are you?
I'm 45, turning, yeah, 45 right
I'm
now. Yeah.
48. So, and
Yeah.
then, so you're talking the 90s.
I started, I was straight edge for a long time.
Shock.
So yeah, I was in straight edge hardcore bands.
Right.
And so it wasn't until a little bit later in life. It was 2000, it was 2010, 2011 where I
Got
first
it.
had my first psychedelic
Well, probably
experience.
better be a
Mhm.
little bit more grown up, really.
Yeah, I went
That's
into it with a lot of intention.
that's very, very cool. Um, yeah, to watch the movie and then, perhaps to recognize that some of those movies are actually of our own making, right? Whereas, we can have a tendency to think that the movies are foisted upon us.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes they are to some degree, but we end up internalizing them and perpetuating them, and that we can just start to um, not participate in the same way. We can stop throwing rocks in those ponds.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
not
like what we
nearly as
resist
hard as,
persists for sure.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and some of the recent, well, it's been some years now, East Forest recordings of Ram Dass where he talks about the dark thoughts that arise. Have you heard those recordings that he's put to music? Uh,
Yes.
yeah, where Ram Dass is talking about just allowing the dark, see them and love them. Uh,
Hmm.
And I've noticed in my psychedelic experiences, if I'm resisting and not just simply allowing, that man, it really hangs on and sticks, and we stay in that phase for so much longer. And then always what I learn is to let go and allow that movie to play out. And really just the end of this thought here that I just wanted to share. And this was really based on, I want to get into some of the things that you were some of these great takes that you have on your Instagram, some of the things that
I've
were
got a
brought
dark
up.
thought take too,
Yeah.
but go
Yeah.
on, please continue.
Yeah. So some of the things that were kind of coming up for me as I was watching your videos and it was helping to really frame a lot of things that I hadn't been able to articulate before, is this idea that plant medicines have helped me to extend moments of awe, which take over, and I get to experience the karma of my mind. Like you said, they're self-created, these things in my mind. And I realized that perhaps what was happening is that it was allowing me to have experiential understanding, having experiences in the metaphysical plane that could help me to dissolve that karma if I would remember and put those lessons, those learnings into action in my physical life. And so it feels like I've been burning up karma through my psychedelic experiences. And I think if I remember them and if I put them into practice in my life, perhaps I won't need to face them again in the physical world, because I faced them in the spiritual, the astral realm, which I got the lesson that I needed to learn. And I think that's why what you do is so important, because you're helping people to remember and to integrate what they have learned in their psychedelic experiences.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of dealing with my karma in the subtlest way possible. I am, there was a tendency, a subtle tendency, maybe not so subtle, to need to learn things the hard way. I grew up perhaps needing to learn things the hard way. And I don't think that's always as necessary. And so one of the things that's nice about, there was this one old, like old half-crazed wisdom, crazy wisdom guy. There's this old crazy wisdom guy that didn't have all his teeth, would hang out at AMA programs. And I don't think he's with us any longer, and I can't remember his name. And if somebody's listening who knows him, please remind me, because I'd love to remember him. And one of the things he said is, one of the best things about meditation is that you don't have to talk about everything all the time. Everybody wants to process this and that and my feelings and this is how it feel for me, and that's my resentment and this and that. Because if you just sit down and meditate and just breathe into it until you'll just work it out on your own, and you don't have to make it anybody else's problem. And I thought that was great, because a lot of us were even just learning how to have those conversations in a healthier way. So to take it one step deeper and just be like, I'm just gonna kind of work it out on my own time, because it's obviously my issue, is really, really great. And it's one of the things that all of these practices, chemical yogas, as Robert Anton Wilson would call them, offer us. On your thought about dark thoughts, is that those are only a problem if we make them mean something about us, right? If we have a dark thought, sometimes we think it means that we're being punished because we're bad, right? Or I'm having the dark thought because I'm bad. Like if I think something negative about somebody, it means I'm a terrible person. The mind just generates stuff. Or, oh, I'm thinking I'm struggling with all of this stuff because I did something wrong and God has to punish me. Just well, maybe, but probably not. As opposed to dark thoughts, far out. But yeah, learning and the thing is, it's so integration is handy for practices for staying connected, or practices for creating a new life afterwards, or connecting to whatever. But there are ways of doing work in the meditations that just are just the work. Like, it's like the trash gets taken out,
Mm-hmm.
whether you know it or not. Like, you could fall asleep. You could have a psychedelic journey where you don't remember anything. You come out with no marching orders, nothing that you're supposed to change, and you're still different because the medicine reorganizes you to some extent and removes some stuff, right? The spiritual practice is, reductive in a lot of ways, right? And so, the fun thing about like the term acid is that, it burns away, right? It's like it'll burn away parts of our like self-centered referential, our self-centeredness. And that's great. That's great. We ride a little lighter, whether we notice it or not.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking to ask you from hearing this. And this relates to something that you said on your Instagram. So by the way, check out everyone check out Daniel's Instagram. That's there in the notes. It's so comforting to watch your takes. I think they're the perfect length, and you really synthesize your words in a way that I'd say repeat them a few times because you get more every time you listen to it. Let it hit you the first time, enjoy it, and then take a couple more listens to it and let it really sink in. One of the things that you were saying that stuck out to me, and I think is relevant to what we're talking about here. I was going to ask, is there a practice that you do before going into a psychedelic experience that you recommend to people? One of the things that you were talking about, I think maybe as a leaping off point, you were talking about cultivating the feeling of gratitude. Maybe in your daily life through a gratitude journal, cultivating and actually feeling that gratitude more and more and more during your daily life. And then you said, use gratitude as a personal mantra for guiding your way and in a
Said
ceremony
that?
space. Yeah.
What did I mean by that? Um, well, the menus are not food, right? The menu is not the food. The map is not the territory.
Mhm.
And so, a gratitude or humility, right, isn't just a word. Kind of like the idea of taking 10 deep breaths is not the same as taking 10 deep breaths, right? You can't live on the idea of breath, right? And, I feel like people are running around trying to live with like the idea of gratitude, right? The gratitude journal exists not so that you have, not to sell journals, right? Not to just put words on paper, but to hopefully engender an experience, right? I mean, that's really what we're trying to do and you can call that like raising the vibration or something. I don't, depending on what language you like. But so that's kind of what I mean is that, we want to get into the tissues of things. There's a lot of spiritual practices and that are very that act like um programming code, right? Like mindfulness, I don't think is just supposed to be like programming code, thinking, dukkha, dukkha. You know what I mean? You don't want to just do there's a lot of bound up energy going on. There's a lot of obstructed emotions that it can't be accessed through just rewriting the code of our thoughts. So that's handy too, right? But even a mantra is supposed to be a vibrational entity, right? It's like a vibrational life form, right? The God is in his name. And so hopefully we're cultivating states, right? And we're cultivating states that can withstand um, the terrible material predicament that we're in, right? And so going into it with gratitude and also going into it with humility, I generally start with, a puja of types that also kind of looks like, my life is a mishmash. Like what's your practice? I'm like a little of this, a little of that. And, I wish that there are people who are like, I do 16 rounds of Hare Krishna every day, and I do this. It's like it's very in line with a system, and I don't fit into systems very well for whatever reason. But so I've got this puja, right? And what we know about pujas, I'm assuming I'm just repeating things that everybody here knows already, but since I'm talking, I'll do it. Puja is this offering to the divine of sort of objects that represent parts of who we are, right? So, and then that also has an elemental aspect, right? So, if you're working your way up the chakras, right, you're doing all the earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, ego, that kind of thing. You're offering all of those to the divine. You're offering all of those to the sacrament, which, I think it was it William S. Burroughs who said the mushroom either is or is not God, something like that, right? An agent at least. And so I generally kind of do that. And I do that in sort of almost like a Western occult sort of way, where you are kind of recognizing the directions as well, because I understand that, again, I'm a three-dimensional human. Like there's a three-dimensional human animal here that is trying to live in harmony with the natural surroundings in the land, right? And so kind of recognizing that, I'm orienting myself, which also makes for a better takeoff and landing, because I'm going off into space, so but just create, like, Ayurvedically speaking, like relating to the earth element in some way to create like a landing pad, a structure, and a boundary, sort of saying, kind of like you're saying, your fortress of peace is like, this is the stuff that's in here for the ceremony, and that's the stuff that's out there for the ceremony. And that is really handy for me. And nothing creates a boundary. If you want to create like the most powerful boundary that you can, in one step, it's put your phone in airplane mode, right? Because I have heard stories of things were going good, and then I got the thought to check my phone,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like there's a text or something, right? The phone's a real mixed bag.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the kinds of things that I suggest, is kind of recognize that, again, we're in a lot of ways reducing ourselves to our basic elements, which is not a bad thing, because our basic elements, depending on who you ask, is truth, consciousness, and bliss, right? So Satchitananda. So if I'm trying to like get more in touch with like the Satchitananda and remove, kind of like it says like the 4th chapter of the Yoga Sutras, like I'm just kind of like trying to remove the blockages to that, then that's cool, because I don't really have to rely on anybody else to give me anything. I'm just kind of getting rid of the stuff that's extra. Like Michelangelo said about David, right? I just took away the stone that wasn't him. And so I'm just kind of like trying to take away the stone that isn't me. And that's kind of how I prepare.
Mm-hmm.
I usually try and like make sure everything's neat too. I clean things as best I can as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those little rituals that we do, and for me, I like to make sure that everybody that, is in my life that, right, maybe could be uh, bothering me at the time, or just let them know, like, I'm about to go into this. Try to like kind of cross the T's and dot the I's before I go in, knowing it's like, all right, my wife knows that I'm going to be out of commission here in my room for 4 hours. Just as many things as I can think of to let balance and know that I'm going to be out in my own world for this period of time, so that I don't have to think about anything else. That if I could just experience what is being shown to me with the medicines, then it would allow me to go so much deeper into it, knowing that I'm not actually having an effect on the physical world. I'm not actually doing anything that is going to negatively impact my life. I can just go deep into this and have this experience. So if it becomes scary, frightening, I know it's just a simulation. It's just a ride. And yeah, there's having this gratitude idea. And you also mentioned breath, keeping your keeping remembering that you can always return to your breath. And a lot of people in ceremony, you look at the fire, just remember to look at the fire and take some deep breaths. Another one that came to me, and this was from a Bufo experience that I had. As the Bufo comes on, for those who are familiar with that, as that Bufo experience comes on, to me, it feels like there's an instant moment of choosing love or fear. And in a split second, it's like both of them seem to arise as it gets so big. And it just came to me. I had this experience where I was starting to go towards the fear. Like I heard somebody else screaming in the ceremony, and then your mind goes towards that. And I'm right at the peak of this expanding infinite fractal universe. And then it just came to my mind just to say the word love, 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 love. And at first I wasn't feeling it. I was still feeling fear, but I just kept saying love, 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 love. And that, as like a breadcrumb trail or a lighthouse, just always just leads me right back. So I have this, just whenever in doubt, I just say the word love, because that's the closest word that I have in my mind of associating with Satchitananda. Oh, your mic is off.
I had a cough. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
One thing I like about that medicine, well, I like how immediate and unavoidable it is. And one of the things that I experience in there somewhere is that, it really just gets right through, blasts right past all my defenses,
Mm-hmm.
right? All my egoic defenses. And what I find there is, like I'll need to say something like love or I'm sorry or whatever it is. And much like mantra, I'll hear it before I say it. Like I'll have this experience, like we know what has to be said or what has to be done before we do it. And so then, I'm in that ceremony and I'm just being used by the deeper part of me that needs to express itself. And so there's this really interesting of like, oh, like I'm supposed to like let this come through, which I'm sure you're very familiar with as being an artist. I'm not really an artist in that way, but it's really interesting being like receiving the message and letting it come through, and then it kind of sinks into like this full embodied experience. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but
Yeah, no,
it's hard to say. It's hard to talk
uh-huh.
about. But
This,
it's
yeah,
half the fun.
that point that you're bringing up is actually the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about. So I'd like to dive in a little deeper with that. This is just some notes that I took, not your exact words, but another one of the shorts on Instagram. You were talking about creativity as a process of being open to receive. Quieting the mind in meditation brings creative ideas. We are inextricably connected to a deep and profound creative intelligence. And divine creativity could save the world. So you can do it. This idea that we should all really be striving to open ourselves up as channels for creativity, because you never know, it could be and collectively all of our ideas are pushing us closer and closer to a better future. Bringing heaven on earth is really what's happening. And so I love this idea. So I'd like to really dive into this a bit. And I've been listening to a lot of Rick Rubin podcasts and reading his book currently, as well as one of my teachers, Swami Kriyananda, talks about this a lot, as well as Stephen Pressfield. So I love this idea, especially as an artist, and there's probably a lot of artists listening to this now, of this idea of making yourself into a channel. And we need you. We need the things that you're going to create, and to all of us together, superheroes that can save the world through this idea. So I'd love to hear more about it from you.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I can say it better than you just did. I mean, that's perfect. But if we have a sense that there is something good and true and connected within us, right? So I guess we have to start there, that perhaps we're connected to some sort of divine source, divine intelligence. If we're just broken if we're nothing, then it doesn't matter. So assuming that there is this consciousness and truth and bliss that's hanging out and it's available. But most of the time that's not what we're oriented towards, right? We're mostly just oriented towards what's going to happen to me. How can I get enough? How can I make the things that I want happen? And how do I think of the next creative idea? And we just kind of grind the gears of like, and that's not even the process. It's not even like the creative channel, right? I mean, not that, and then, certainly that stuff has its use and its function, and that's just a different topic. But, what does it take to kind of find our connection to that deeper intelligence, right? And to kind of use it to, like the Jewish mystics talk about tikkun olam, like repairing the world. That's sort of like that's the job, is to sort of kind of bring heaven on earth or something in some ways. And that probably we all have a part to play in that, because it's not like, it doesn't make sense to me. And well, and then if you listen to the Gita, right, it's, it says that we're, the dog and the dog eater and the saint and the sinner, like all are connected to the same source. So it's not like I can't go through the world and pick who has access to God and who doesn't. Like I'm not going to make those distinctions. I'm just going to assume that, that's available to everybody. And I think both Buckminster Fuller said it and Stephen Gaskin, talked a lot about it, that, there's no passengers on Spaceship Earth. Like we're all crew.
Mm.
And if we're all crew, then like we've all got stuff to do to pilot. As it says in the pyramids, right? I believe in, one of the hieroglyphics in the pyramids said that, Spaceship Earth will be piloted back into the heavens by the Grateful Dead. And I like that. I like that a lot. So it can be really fun, actually, like if you are on some psychedelics and you're in nature, you stand on the earth, and then you pilot it back into the heavens. That's like a fun activity. A fun psychedelic activity is to be like, I'm gonna pilot Spaceship Earth back into the heavens.
I like that.
And then the idea of like, our spiritual idea of death is that, our limited sense of self, right? That separate, that presumption, that erroneous presumption of a separate, long-lasting entity can fall by the wayside, and it's just, your flaming skull just piloting the earth back into the heavens.
I love that. Yeah. It makes me think about it as you were talking there. The idea came up, thinking about us hearing this and wanting to help be part of this crew that is piloting the spaceship back to heaven. Yeah, oftentimes in psychedelic experiences, we get creative inspiration, we get big ideas, we get a lot of ideas come through, and
Yes.
maybe not all of the ideas are ones that we should pursue.
Right.
Some of them are in line with our dharma. Some of them maybe are just attached to our emotions or our ego or our desires, our selfish desires. But there is I like to think about, for my own practice, is how to be able to tell the difference between an idea that's coming from a super conscious space, our higher self speaking to us, or one that maybe is coming from a lower place. And maybe we could talk a little bit about how to tell the difference, if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, first, do no harm, right? So if we're practitioners, we have ethical precepts, right? And so we're not lying, cheating, or stealing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sleeping around. So if you're not lying, cheating, stealing, or sleeping around, you've passed the first test,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then, back to the Grateful Dead, who said, without love in a dream, it'll never come true. So it's a question of, your devotional quality, like your devotional capacity, and your Shakti, like your energy. Like, do you have the the bhakti and the shakti or the kripa. You know, my Sanskrit's not great, but like, do you have the heart energy and the will energy to actually make it happen? Right. And so you've got to be honest with yourself. And then you have to wonder, like, do you have like the skills? Right. Because there's, you know, it's like, oh, I'm going to like build a retreat center. It's like, well, have you ever built anything before? No, but well, it's complicated. You know, it's like some of these things are complicated.
Mhm.
And so, you know, we need a certain amount of energy, and need a certain amount of like skills and know-hows. And then, you know, a certain amount of like personal habits. Like, is your time management even good enough?
Yeah.
Is your money management good enough? And so maybe you need to work on those. But but I wouldn't want people to some of the on the flip side of this kind of brash, I'm gonna like do a thing, um, is analysis paralysis. Like I wouldn't want somebody to be like, oh, like, is it really like my higher self that wants to do the thing, or is it my lower self, or is it like it's better to do stuff, you know, like, you know, in the Gita, Krishna wants you to act. Like, he's like, go do the stuff. You'll get critical feedback from the universe, you know,
Mm-hmm.
at some you know, like, 90% of restaurants fail. You know, it's like you'll fail, but you'll still be you'll still have life left in your body. So you do something else. Doesn't matter, as long as you're not hurting anybody. So that's cool. But how does that land? I feel like I would start to ramble if I kept
No,
saying more.
no, no, that's good. I think those things are great. Yeah, because sometimes what happens with the danger sometimes is that, well, we have a vision, we have a psychedelic experience. I must do this, and that could be, there's ways that could be very dangerous, or perhaps, But I think you're right there, though. Actually, heeding the call and actually doing things, taking the inspiration and putting it into practice in the world helps to train our willpower. And perhaps we get these big ideas to go beyond something we've done in the past, perhaps skills that we don't have. But yeah, take them incrementally. Like, I like to say, my brother and I are artists. We get called to do things that are in the vein of what we do, but it's a step up. It's a ratchet up. It's something that we haven't done before. It's not going from I've never made an image in my life, and all of a sudden tomorrow I'm going to paint a mural. It's an incremental ratcheting up to take me to the next level, where I do feel, okay, this is a challenge that I'm willing to level up to and to take on. And another thing that I was thinking, this is a teaching from Swami Kriyananda. He talks about when we have an inspiration, when an inspiration arrives, one of the things that he does is he says in his mind, is this wisdom? Is this of God? And then he feels in his heart, like, does this water it with love? Does this feel? And I've realized that that's actually helped me to, in that moment, maybe to not have to go down routes that would take me in the wrong direction, but to be able to go in one that I feel with my heart. I feel, and it's a subtle practice that takes time over and over to cultivate that and to recognize the feeling. And I know you were actually talking about feeling different emotions and feeling things in your body as a tool also to help direct and to explore things. So I was thinking maybe talking about that a little bit of maybe how you've used the feelings in the body to help guide you a bit, or to
I want to say one thing, because I've been I'm going to be talking with like the Naropa Psychedelic Society kind of soon, and so I've been kind of brushing up on my Chogyam Trungpa. And one of the things that he says is that, the aspirant on a spiritual path should really get really comfortable with disappointment, and things not working out.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when I say our material predicament, that's what I mean, is that we've set out to sea in a boat that's going to sink. And that sometimes we think that, oh, I had this psychedelic inspiration that I have to do a thing. And that they think that that means that the thing is going to work out the way they want it to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not promised.
Right.
Right? And that it maybe it will be easy, and that's not promised. And so if we are looking at the thing, because really if it's like, oh, I need to do, I like the medicine wants me to do X, Y, and Z, probably not really. It's probably you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's probably to fulfill some sort of deep need that has been unmet so far, right? Some sort of need for significance or purpose or what have you. And that's fine. We all need those things. But recognizing what that is, it's like, oh, I have a deep need for safety. I have a deep, somebody says, oh, I want to quit my job and just play guitar all day. It's like, okay, well, like, so the job is somehow not meeting the need, or it's impeding in a perceived what you getting needs met. And then you want to play guitar all day. Great. It's like that you have a deeper need for creativity. Maybe it would be better for you for a while to just like, and then you ask that person, I need to quit my job and play guitar all day. It's like, okay, cool. Like, how much are you playing to now? How much do you play every day now? And they're like, oh, I haven't touched it in 6 months. As well, yeah, like you've been repressing your need for creativity and now it's coming back with a vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you just, by the time we talk next week, put some new strings on it?
Mm-hmm.
Let's start there. See if you can get strings on it in 7 days, right? And see if you can then play for a half hour after dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so getting really honest about what you're actually trying to accomplish through the project, and also getting real clear about that the project's success is in no way guaranteed. I'm sure that have you ever had like a really good idea for like an art project and then you do it and then nobody likes it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's no
Yeah.
problem. You thought it was the best idea ever and everybody's like mid.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I've had ideas that seen through to the end, and I love them. They didn't make enough of a splash in the world to be able to continue pursuing it
Right.
financially. But the things that I learned, the idea is like, okay, I learned my increasing understanding, my increasing ability, my closeness with God in a way that the project worked. Like I've had things where the project, it was beautiful. It didn't earn any money and it didn't sustain itself, but the project itself actually really taught me so much. So I've always felt like, okay, that's a success, even though I can't continue doing that.
So if that's what we're hoping for, is that, you know, we're engaging in the world in such a way that we are becoming more of a refuge for ourselves and others, then, it's much harder to go wrong. If we have a very precise expectation of what it's going to look like externally, we are cruising for a bruising, as they say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting with ideas and things that we pursue. Like one of the big ones that I had, which is I think a fun example, is I got obsessed with lucha libre. I had from travels, from the love of the art of seeing lucha libre, and also starting to this area where I live in Florida. There's a lot of wrestling here. It used to be a hub for the WWE. You have a lot of wrestlers in the Tampa Bay area, so we would see like independent lucha libre matches. And I got so obsessed with it, and I started making artwork around it. I actually started making my own wrestling personas with luchador masks, having them made in
Have one? Will you go
Mexico.
put one on for us real quick?
I have one on a head over here. I'll grab it.
Amazing. Did you build that?
Yeah. So, well, I designed this, sort of like Peter Parker designing Spider-Man. And
Right.
then I sent the designs off to a mask maker in Mexico, which I got contacts through deep sources and luchadors to create the mask. And then I worked with independent luchadors that were here in Florida who were they were a tag team that weren't wearing masks. Not all luchadors wear masks. And they were actually looking to start wearing masks in the ring. So we got in contact like at the right kind of beautiful time together. And I actually ended up designing 5 different luchador personas and working with independent wrestlers to take those on. And this one now, Serpentico, he's actually pretty famous. He's wrestling in the second biggest wrestling organization in the US called AEW. And the other character, Oraculo, the hero character, he's been a star in Arena Mexico, MCLL in Arena Mexico, in Mexico City. But that was just a project that I remember pulling that off. A friend of mine and I, our idea was if we could create something that would become actually ingrained into the authentic lucha libre realm culture, that would be such an amazing accomplishment. And that's really what we wanted to do, is make art and just have an impact on it. And we really helped out some wrestlers by creating so much great promo stuff around them. And I learned that if I just took steps, the path would appear in front of me. And we had a motto where it was, something will happen. Things go wrong, something will happen. Don't worry, something will happen. But that project, it just taught me so much about just staying calm. And things aren't going to go the way that you thought they're going to go. But if you persevere and you have faith, then something interesting will happen.
That is amazing. That is so fun. And one of the things that I really appreciate is seeing the other facets to people's personalities. Because sometimes, we can get real in the spiritual materialism. And we're like, this is my personality. It's just very seriously spiritual, and there's not a lot else to me. But then they're like, oh no, bro likes luchadors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really cool.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about, this is another thing that I heard you talking about on your Instagram channel. And this is the one that really spoke to me. You were talking about, these are some notes that I took. You were talking about deep listening that becomes possible with meditation, letting go of ambition and desire to simply see what is happening rather than trying to make something happen. I really liked that. This idea that there already is all of this going on. So perhaps just listening to what you're hearing can open up this deep listening, and we can have an experience where we're not actually trying to make something happen. I would love to dive into that a little bit. And then there's other aspects that you kept going on here that I think are really fun to explore.
Well, we're so manipulative, right? We want what we want, and we'll do whatever we have to do to get it. And we'll do that in meditation too. Like, oh yeah, I love when, new students come and they're like, and then I felt, a fiery column of energy shoot up my spine. Like that's the be all to end all of meditative experience.
Yeah.
It's like everybody wants to have a Kundalini awakening. And I was like, okay, well now what? So I was like, are you Shiva now? Like, generally they're not Shiva. But so, there's a lot of, and it's not bad to do energy cultivation practices or, embodiment practices, right? Like if I want to embody calmness, sweetness, and happiness, like that's me doing something. Right. And so when I'm doing something, there's still like the I. It's like I'm the best at embodying, like let's have a competition to see who's the best at embodying sweetness. Right. It can be, the ego will take it and use it to its advantage, anytime you're efforting. So there's that. Still be a net positive, really. But to just drop the ambition and to see what's there can create a really different experience and understanding. Right? To just, like seeking. Are we seekers of the eternal?
Yes.
That's where we are. All right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was on Truth Seekers podcast last week. I don't know if you know that guy. If all of the
Uh,
seekers are friendly with each other.
I I know the musician Truth Seeker.
Yeah, he's like a Christian
Yeah, okay, the same
metal,
one.
like new
Mhm.
metal guy.
Yes,
Um,
familiar.
s- Sweet being.
Hmm.
Uh, really, really enjoyed. And I don't want to poke fun at the idea of seeking, but just kind of resting in the nature of the self. Just like stop, like so like the energy, and again, respectfully, like the hungry ghost energy of just like trying to get trying to get and just kind of like sit by the river and watch it roll by and enjoy that, right? Be in the enjoyment, because that's again your nature is enjoyment, and witnessing. And so trying to figure out how we can do that at all levels by
Hmm.
just, you know, neroding. Neroding, as Patanjali said, like stopping the activity long enough to just see what's really happening.
Hmm. Yeah, it seems to be such a balance between the two because we need the willpower, and obviously if we're going into it, we're going into a deep ceremony experience. We need to have the intention, the aiming our sights at what we're having to, like using a lighthouse is really what I like to. I'm aiming it at light, seeking light. That way, at least I know where I'm going. Whenever I'm finding myself alone in the dark forest,
Mm.
I'm seeking the eternal. Is it eternal? Not eternal. Is it the light? Not the light. That way, it's just always having, no matter, because I was getting into these places, having these psychedelic experiences, meditative experiences that were so enormous that I felt like I needed to have a lighthouse that I
Yeah,
could know when there's a question in my mind, which way to go. It's
yeah,
love.
yeah. And I'm not beyond it either. I mean, I was telling
Mhm.
you, it's like I'm setting up structures for myself and ceremony and all that kind of stuff. We
Yeah,
all do.
yeah.
And what I'm hearing from you is kind of like that Stevie Wonder vibe, where Stevie Wonder says, when you're grooving in the positive, your destination is the brightest star,
Love that.
and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And now I want to, so I'm having an online conference in a couple of months, the Integration Jam, and I want to put you and Truthsika on the same panel.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
love to. Mm.
it'd be fun.
Yeah. When did you say that was?
Probably like the first weekend in May.
May. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's connect on that. That'd be great. So the next part of that, after we talk about deep listening, you said this is my notes. Through deep curiosity, we can learn so much about ourselves, the universal mind, truth, and reality. We may also uncover deep repressed pain that comes up. We can think of that as a big spooky monster, but it's our monster. So perhaps we should take that monster for a walk in the woods. This is something that it really spoke to me, this idea that we're having this curiosity. Obviously, we're very curious beings if we're eating this plant that's going to take us into the unknown. And we can learn so much about ourselves. But when that repressed pain comes up, oftentimes we get afraid of it and we sort of push it away, where actually that is such a good thing that's coming up, being able to see where we might have these traumas or these repressed pains. So it's a really good thing that's coming up, but that can be so scary. It makes me think of, like, say, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the big scary monsters in that, in the paintings in Tibet, and this idea that once you see that scary monster, you say, no, I know you, you're my guru. You're not really a monster, you're actually here to help me. And I'd love to talk about that a little bit, because those things come up and we want to push them away, but they could be the best part of the psychedelic experience or meditation.
Yeah. Um, was it Robert Anton Wilson who said, certainty is the death of intelligence? something along those lines. Whereas, I mean, we know that we don't know a lot. We also know that what we don't know is even bigger. But we sure do love to act certain. Like there is so much safety and comfort and security in acting certain. And we are cutting ourselves off from the curiosity, which is how we learn. Right? And this scary monster, this anger, this hurt, or shame or guilt or grief, right? Grief is huge these days. Grief like it wasn't before. Like grief is so in.
We're talking about it now, at least, right? Yeah.
So 2024 is grief.
Yeah.
That we have a tendency to recoil from anything painful, right? Even if it's not dangerous, right? We're very thrilled about our comfort zone. And so, the monster that I'm referring to is just unpleasant emotions, right? That sometimes get, turned into some kind of being in a psychedelic state. Which is not to say that there aren't other things out there that maybe we need to worry about, but this is not what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about us, engaging ourselves from a place of just more curiosity and more loving awareness. And it, I can't tell you the amount of times that, I have felt really threatened and felt like I really had to fight for my life. And then I gave up. I just didn't have the energy to do it anymore. And instead of something bad happening, I was like just a wash of like cool water, and love and forgiveness like washed over me. And I wish I would remember that. I wish I would remember that sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes
it
I
makes me think of it, in physical life, things come up that seem like big scary monsters, and we fight and we resist and we don't want it to happen. But then if there's, we do our best, obviously, to resolve our situations, but beyond that, I'm doing my best, so I'm happy. Yogananda says, if you're doing, you can have a mantra in your mind, I'm doing my best, and so I can be happy. It's like this idea in the psychedelic experience. I'm doing my best here. I'm allowed to be happy. I'm allowed to just let this go. And it seems like the same thing. It can happen in a mental psychedelic state, or it can be happening in the outside world. There's really not a difference. It's really all about how we're responding to the stimuli that arises, and we can stay calm and sweet through it.
What was I going to say? Remaining calm and sweet through it. Yeah. And I think that we don't always recognize our own growth. That sometimes things happen a little easier, and so we don't even notice that it was a struggle last year or something like that. Sometimes I think, I've gotten much better at saying to myself, kind of like, a riff on what you were just saying. My mantra, I've got this mantra that is similar to that, where it's, I could do better and I can be nicer to myself. Right? That just because there's more to learn and more ways to grow doesn't mean I need to kick my own ass all the time. It's like I don't necessarily deserve to be abused by myself, by my inner critic, just because I'm not quite at the level of where I might think I should be.
Yeah, that's something I think about a lot, and I've had psychedelic experiences that have helped me and taught me this idea of introspection. Introspection can be so nice, actually, if we're not judging ourselves. I've had moments where I'm being shown my life, past actions, things that I've said that I wish that I didn't, that I wish I would have done differently. But when I'm in that present moment connection, and I feel like it's, to me, it's a female presence, a divine mother telling her little boy that maybe in the future do it this way. Here's what you did in the past, and in the future do it a little bit differently. And I actually enjoy it in those moments where it's present moment. I'm experiencing that karma coming up in my mind. She's showing it to me and suggesting I do it a little differently in the future, and I don't mind it at all. It's actually very pleasant. And then as that goes on for a little while, I find that if I'm not staying in that present moment, all of a sudden that judgment comes in, and now it's judging. I'm judging myself for not already knowing that. Oh, what's wrong with you for not knowing this already? And it's this funny thing that happens where for a good period, it's nice introspection and wisdom and all the things that we signed up to do this medicine journey for. We should be grateful. And then that judging thinking mind comes in where that ego is beating us up for it. And that's just the part that's completely unnecessary.
Right. Yeah, it's completely unnecessary. And how we learned it, where it started is anybody's guess. I find that it's also really a challenge to not lay that trip on the next generation as well. And to, what is called apparently gentle parenting, and you see, because I do spend some time on Instagram, and Instagram has figured out that I'm a parent of two tiny children, that they talk about, first generation gentle parents. And it's just really that, embodying that struggle between perhaps how we were raised and how we want to do things in the future. And so it's really wild also seeing it as we reparent ourselves. You're talking about this gentle mother presence, which, is both is and isn't you at the same time. And allowing ourselves to perhaps feel worthy of that, worthy of that level of kindness and care in the teachings that we receive.
Love that. The next part of that you were bringing up in that talk is another thing that could come up in addition to uncovering deep repressed pain. Also, what could come up is revelation and deep truths about the universe, the love and the splendor and the majesty that, I love this, is just rolling inside of you, is rolling inside of your heart. The love and splendor and majesty that's just rolling inside your heart. And we often ignore this because it doesn't fit in with regular society. But this is something that we should also take. We should take splendor and majesty for walks in the woods, because it can make everything beautiful. And this is a big part of it, too. It's like even these moments where splendor and majesty and beauty are coming up, we start to block that because it doesn't fit in with regular society. Yeah, that's a really powerful point that meant a lot to me to hear.
Yeah, the world isn't designed for ecstasy. Like if you're having too much fun, they might try to cart you away. And, I'm sure that those of us who have recreated in public are familiar with the experience of like trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
Right. And not like laugh too hard at nothing, and not to be too in awe of stuff. And we have learned particular ways of like masking so that we can sort of kind of try to be allowed to go about our business. And, there's something kind of fun and mischievous about that in and of its own. But it would be nice if at least more parts of society were open to free expressions of joy and ecstasy, truth and connection and authenticity.
Yeah. Yogananda talks a lot about deciding to be happy. And if you decide to be happy, nothing in the world can make you unhappy. But if you decide to be unhappy, nothing in the world can make you happy. And
who's more committed? Are you more committed to your happiness than the other person is committed to their misery?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. An environment, being around other people also that are really enjoying this happiness. Like when I go to my ashram, the Nanda village in California, just being around that
Oh, in
environment.
Nevada City.
Yeah, Nevada City.
I love it there.
Yeah, that environment to me, that is my psychedelics. I mean, like going there, I was thinking it would be even silly for me to even think about bringing mushrooms to a place like that, because I'm already in that heightened environment, that it makes those states available to me. And then being around all of these other people who are also just deciding to be happy and enjoy the majesty and splendor, the environment is so powerful for keeping that on full time.
You can just OD on the altar.
Right. Yeah.
You can, like, take in too much prana just from the holy pictures
Yeah.
there.
Being drunk on God, this
Yeah.
idea, drunk on God. And then you said, this is a great point. You need both. There's no healing in wallowing in our wounds and comparing our wounds. And we also can't just ignore our wounds and try to stay in the infinite eternity, because you're spiritually bypassing, you're losing your humanity. So we need to address both. We need to be open to both. Maybe this idea of not having attachment to one or the other is maybe the idea here.
Yeah, I remember. It's funny. It's coming back to me. I remember the hike I was on when I recorded this. Um, it was cool. It was nice hike that day. Um, there is a lot of people whose identity is wrapped up in the bad stuff that happened to them. Um, and I think we can do better. While we're going to be, while we're identifying as limited things, just kind of what we're doing. It's like we could still kind of consciously create what it is, and just kind of an over focus on some stuff is not really where it's at. And I am aware, right? We were talking about, I know it's not as simple as just like rewriting some lines of code, that things can happen, and the organism's response is to really create like an energetic, like, supernova of suffering. And that can really be hard to erode and unpack and process and heal and alchemize. But it's certainly better to do it than to not. So I just think that our words have meanings, and they create our realities in some ways. And so better to be really conscious about it and think about how we're identifying.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily want to be identified by just like the worst stuff that's happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that hopefully, kind of like you were saying, that, it's nice to find people who listen to the music that I liked, and who, did the same thing as kids that I did. Hopefully our experiences can benefit others, right? Because, like, rough stuff happened to us, but we're committed to healing, right? We're committed to growing, and we're committed to transforming. And we might have more interest in doing that, and might have more capacity to do that, interest and capacity to do that than most other people. So then can we be a refuge and demonstrate that healing is possible for people, and maybe even hold a tone, like a vibratory tone of healing for folks who don't have it as good as we do, as opposed to just kind of doubling down on the mire of misery that people are used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I agree with that. It seems like it goes a bit hand in hand. I was also thinking about gratitude, and also thinking about that idea of silence sometimes, where talking about it's not going to make it better, but sometimes just sitting with that you can receive the wisdom, the things that we need to learn. And sometimes if we're really sensitive and we really go in with an intention, this idea that even the terrible things that have happened to us, if we really explore them with an open mind, there is always a silver lining hiding within those challenging experiences that actually have made us stronger, have actually made us into these, like chiseling, you were talking about cutting away the things that don't serve us anymore, like that sculpture, cutting away and chiseling us into the perfect form. And maybe those traumas and things that happen to us are actually some of our greatest benefits if we could see the silver lining in that way and even have gratitude for the struggles.
Yeah. And that's one of the fun things about like a harrowing psychedelic experience as well, is
Mm-hmm.
that you survive it.
Yeah.
Was that thing was like that was the strangest, scariest, most terrifying, most painful thing that ever happened. Let's go get breakfast.
Yeah. 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 And that's why I continue, even though I have my Kriya yoga practice, I've got all of this. I think the reason why I continue to do ceremonies is for that reason. I like to, I like to, I like to test myself, put myself in uncomfortable places, test my ability to not have desires or aversions, not want things to go a certain way, surrender, submit my will, submit myself to the will of the universe and just allow it to give me everything it's got, like a chiropractor. Just don't take it easy on me. Just let me have it all. And if I can just go through it knowing it's actually hurting me, this is actually helping me, and then it really being able to, like you talk about, is this integrating that into your daily life. Now when things arise that are very difficult in your physical world, like, well, I faced some of the most challenging things for probably what felt like an eternity in my meditation practice or my psychedelic practice, but this is only gonna, this is only lasting a week, say. Being able to apply that to daily life has been so powerful for me. So I enjoy the medicine for that reason of just getting over desires and aversions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great reason a great reason to keep going back to, I think it was, it's like Paul Stamets talks about evolutionary advantage. It's like that the Neanderthals or the early men, I'm not familiar. I don't know all like the right words for our ancestors, but the people who use small bits of mushrooms, he claims, had an evolutionary advantage over the people who didn't. And, I think that kind of building resilience, like emotional and spiritual resilience, and kind of having the um, organization of what's really important, the prioritization, um, having that on a regular basis gives us an evolutionary advantage.
I agree. I agree. The three takeaways that you had from this here, and these are, I love this. You said first, when we're talking about, like recapping here, we were talking about opening ourselves to maybe even uncovering deep repressed pain, also opening ourselves to revelation, splendor, majesty. And then you said that you had 3 points here. Perhaps we
Mm-hmm.
should listen for the stuff, honor the stuff, and then express and communicate the stuff in a way that's healing and of service. And
Mm.
if you're anything like me, your service is where your healing lies.
I said that, huh?
Which is so nice. This listen for the stuff, be open to it, honor it when it comes, and then express and communicate like we're doing currently now in our service. Take it into something that we can help the world with. So that's what I got out of it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, that's like I didn't invent that.
Right.
That's just the real basic way that intelligence works. We're going back to like intelligence theory, is that we take in information, right? And so in this case, I'm taking in information from some sort of deeper place or what have you. So we listen, right? We take it in, we synthesize it in some way, That's the honoring. And then we communicate it. And so if you can do those things at a high level, we call you smart,
Mm.
right? And if you can't do those things, then you're not so smart. If you can't listen, learn, and communicate, better luck next life. And to some degree, a lot of these things are teachable or learnable, which is cool. So that's just kind of what's there. And that's why things like censorship, as an artist, I'm sure that you're not too hip to censorship. I was just watching some of the testimonies by Frank Zappa and Dee Snider, in the 80s, when the Parents Music Resource Center tried to censor rock and roll, censor a bunch of rock and roll and heavy metal and stuff. And they were so eloquent in the face of these people who wanted to kind of do something stupid, which was, restrict the flow of information, right? In this case, music. Music is information. And so just kind of whatever we can do to kind of increase our capacity for those three things, I think, is in general a benefit. And then as far as, there's that idea of like our liberation is bound up in each other, right? There's no like me, I get enlightened and everybody else can, go get bent. It's like we're kind of in it together. And so, for me to grow, we've all heard that story about the guy who thought that he was enlightened. He was up on a mountaintop for like 20 years meditating, and he had attained all these magical siddhas and things like that. And then he finally like decided it was time to come into town, and he was there 5 minutes, and somebody accidentally bumped into him, and he yelled at them.
Right.
Like it's like we're in it together.
Mm.
And so, I am trying to, and I have a lot of solitary tendencies. I have a lot, yeah. I like my alone time. I like my space, and but I also like people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I like working with people, and I like being of service. And so, finding our path through that is an interesting and worthwhile endeavor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hearing the story that you're sharing about the yogi meditating, it makes me think about something that I really learned with my practices, and probably a lot of those of us who have partners that we're with and we're exploring these mysterious realms and coming back out of them a little fragile, inebriated, sensitive, back out into the world. What I learned for myself, my sort of code that I have for myself is, say if I come back out and I'm around my wife, I don't want to freak anybody out. You know how you can get into a kind of a strange state afterwards, being sensitive from the medicine. What I try to always do is I want to come back out into the world with more joy, more happiness, more love, more just be happier. This idea that Swami Kriyananda, he would quote this saint who said, "Your religion is tested in the cold light of day." I love that. This idea that with these spiritual practices, our religion, it's tested in the cold light of day. So when we're doing these practices, if we want to be good ambassadors for them, we should meet the world as best we can with more happiness, more joy, show that it's working. Use magic words in your own minds to find silver linings in the things in through your life. Tell good stories about what happened in your psychedelic experience, even if they were challenging. Look for the good things in there and talk about the good things that happen, instead of getting so caught up sometimes in that, where we can come back out into the world and be more dire, more gray and dark, more brooding. But if I just make a code for myself, when I come back out, 100%, 100 times happier. I just tell myself to do that. Smile, come back out into the world, smile as much as I can, greet people in a happier way. And I do the same thing after my meditations. I'm a happier person when I'm done with tell myself that. So I think that's been a really helpful thing in my life. So just wanted to share that with people that are listening. And this has been a wonderful time getting together with you, Daniel. I've really enjoyed this. I have more topics here that I'd like to explore with you, but I think hopefully we'll be communicating more in the future. Also, you have an image of Hanuman behind you. Such a big influence in my life of connecting with the story of Hanuman and the Ramayana, and him as an example of a great devotee that
You know,
provides
do
that
you know John Speaker?
that the artist John Speaker. I've not connected with him before, but I know that name.
Sweet guy. It's a John Speaker.
Mm, very
We're both
cool.
originally from Philly. So
Wow. Yeah. I make a lot of Hanuman art as well. So
yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, big fan of your art. Thanks.
oh, thank you.
Really
Thank
great
you.
to be with such a prophet or sage, apsara. I forget what the Sanskrit word for divine artist is.
Oh, appreciate that. I'm moving out of the realm for me was commercial illustration for so long, and my goal this year is to really 100% move into that place of channeling work and making work that comes from the heart, and finding ways to do that are sustainable through really just tuning in and finding out what wants to happen. And so I'm learning how to do that more and more, and it's just becoming so much more fun to operate in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really curious. I do like we didn't even get to talk about your NFT project.
Mm.
I had an idea for one. I don't know how to do it, but
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
gonna
I'd love
share.
to talk. We don't have to cut it short here. I think this is an interesting conversation. If there's other things that you'd like to talk about, I'm down to keep exploring it.
Yeah, what maybe like I feel like it might be like another. I don't know if I can turn my mind that way.
Okay. Yeah, we'll pick that up at another time together because I've got
Yeah.
ideas for that. And I think with the kind of things that you're doing, I think there's opportunities in it. And I've learned a lot from just playing in that world and all of that stuff. So yeah, we can talk a little bit more about that together. I wanted to end here just with I thought this is a book from Paramahansa Yogananda,
Beautiful.
collection of his things that he had written in magazines, things that he has said that people gather. This one is a great one. This is actually available on Audible too as an audiobook. It's
Hmm.
called How to Live Without Fear. Oh, it's so beautiful. This is if you're going into a psychedelic experience, this could really help calm you beforehand, listening to these words from a fully awakened master on how to overcome fear. And I thought we would just end with this end with this to leave everyone and have any last words that you would like to share. Oh, you know what I wanted to share with people? This is that you also that you also offer year-long psychedelic integration coaching and training programs, which can offer graduates the ability to become certified coaches and to help others. So I thought that was really cool. I wanted to definitely mention that. And are there opportunities for people that would like to take on such a thing?
Well, it starts in October.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to probably start enrolling people in March.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear from folks if they think that that's something they'd like to do. And, I've got various, explainer videos, but it's a method of coaching that, again, goes into deep inquiry. It goes beyond just, this is what this molecule does, and this is what this molecule does. And, it's more of a deep exploration with people so that they can actually grow. And you can work with people uh, beyond the scope of just like a medicine journey, right? Because we're all kind of on a longer journey. So if people are interested in, I like working with people who are interested in working,
Yeah.
right? In as much as beyond just, hey, what's this button do?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
I,
so that's
I
kind of the
love
place
that.
that we're coming from is sort of coaching is spiritual practice in a way. Coaching is deep inquiry.
Yeah, just so often you have these psychedelic experiences, and perhaps you've been doing them for years and years, and you just come into a place where you're called to help others with it or share the medicine with other people. So I love this idea of being certified with it, and working with others who have been on the path for longer, teaching you the ropes, giving you some guidelines and ways that you can really do some good, and help your friends, and make your psychedelic experiences really do a lot of good work for others and for yourself. So I think that's an awesome thing. So if anybody's feeling called for that, I would sign up for it. What a wonderful way to be able to, in just a year of training, to
Do
really
you want
dive
in?
in, you know? Um, I have so many things that I'm training in currently, but it sounds really fascinating to me. My world is more, I've gotten away from the psychedelic, sharing the psychedelic medicines, more of a yoga and meditation training. Is what I'm feeling most called to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not really trying to hard sell you. I just got
Yeah,
excited
no,
prospect
no.
of being able to hang out with you all year.
Yeah, and you never know. I'm open to whatever wants to happen in my world. So that does sparkle to me as a really fascinating thing, because I am, from time to time, what I do now is, friends who want to have psychedelic experiences, I often take them to ceremony,
Mm.
ayahuasca healers that I trust, and but sometimes I am called to help people out in my home or things like that too. So it could be something that works for me in the future. And also, you have programs. It doesn't have to be year-long programs and training. You have so many online courses and videos and Zoom gatherings and all of this kind of stuff. So for people that want to really take your psychedelic practice or ways to help others to the next level, there's so many things that are available to you. So I love this world that we're in currently, because these things were not available when I was younger.
You sure weren't.
So I will share the links below for all of that stuff, and then I just will read this to end our time together. And Daniel, it's been such a pleasure, and I really look forward to getting to chat with you a lot more. I feel like I've known you for a long time.
We might have been at one of the same shows.
Yeah. Yogananda says, when you find yourself haunted by fear, the first antidote is to know that you are protected behind the battlements of God's eternal safety. Nothing happens to you. Nothing that happens to you can harm your eternal self. Even death is but a spiritual anesthetic to relieve one from pain from a period immediately following mortality. Oh.
Beautiful. Held in perfect safety in the mind of God.
Blessings, my friend,
Many
and
blessings.
joy
Thank you.
to everyone who is listening. We hope that you enjoyed that, and we will see you again next time. Next week, we're going to have on Chris Dyer. We're going to explore his
Tell him I
artwork
said
and
hey.
visit his house. I will.
All right. Be
Blessings.
well.
Thank you, Dan.